Good afternoon. Welcome to My Left Ear. This is Carrie Freeman. I am Carrie Freeman. And it is Tuesday, January 25th. This is video 74 called Neil Young and Fani Willis Rock, which will be explained in a minute. So My Left Ear is a left-leaning YouTube site. And if you're a MAGA, you won't like this, and I would suggest you move on, not get yourself frustrated. It's for independents and Democrats and so on and so forth. And what do? I'm a change agent. I do a lot of different things. I help people through clinical hypnotherapy, also called therapeutic hypnosis. I coach people artistically, creatively. I've written 2 books. And I do psychic coaching. And I think I'm gonna replay my video on psychic coaching. I'm gonna repost it to remind everybody how it works, because just that term, psychic coaching, might be a little vague to you. And anyway, every time I come on, I ask you to subscribe if you have not, if you like it. And like, because these things matter to you too. And lastly, as always, whatever I talk about is for entertainment purposes only, as you know. All right, here we go. I'm starting with 3 fun things. 3 fun things. Now, the first thing, Neil Young, the famous musical artist, rocker, brilliant. I mean, he was way before Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, but he was a part of Crosby, Stills, and then he went on his own. Massively successful, massively wealthy, because anybody who writes a successful song, you get a lot of money, okay? So Neil Young notified Spotify to stop playing all his music. Ba-dum-bum. Because Neil Young hates the disinformation on Spotify by star Joe Rogan, who is a proponent of alternative COVID treatments. And he gives out lots of advice. He has had COVID, and he tells everybody what works, and he sort of functions like a doctor a little bit. And Rogan, I checked this out. As of 2019, his podcast had 190 million downloads each month. That is enormous. But what Neil Young is doing, because they can't hurt him, is he's taking money away from Spotify. And he's told them why. Because he doesn't like this disinformation that's hurting people. So I want to say, applaud Neil Young. And Neil doesn't need the money. By the way, I saw a documentary once on Neil Young, or maybe it was like a 2020 coverage or something. And he has a son that is some kind of disabled or autistic, I'm not sure. But on the property, he had built himself, he had done it himself, an entire train set for his son. And it was the most elaborate and brilliant thing I'd ever seen. And then I went, oh, okay, Neil Young is a genius. So that's one fun thing. I love that he's doing this. It's just the opposite of Eric Clapton. The opposite of Eric Clapton. And it sends a message to Joe Rogan. Now, he's very, popular, powerful, and it may not, but, money always speaks. And when you take money away, like Morris Dees seized the property of the KKK a long time ago, and it broke them. So money's a big deal in terms of disempowering bad people. Let me put it that way. Number 2, cool news. Fani Willis is the Attorney General in Georgia, and she's the one who's opened the investigation to Donald Trump and extorting the Secretary of State for more votes that was caught on phone, recorded. But here's what made me very excited. She is also including Lindsey Graham in this investigation concerning voter fraud, conspiracy, extortion. Yay! Maybe that'll shut him up. And then number 3, which is just amusing, okay? It just amuses me. So on Twitter yesterday, I came upon a tweet, and I didn't know this woman, I haven't followed her. She is 78 years old, lives in Virginia, and she owns a cannabis dispensary. So she wrote in her tweet, there was a young man running for Senate who got 6 million plus views last week for smoking a joint. And I saw it, and there was a picture of him smoking the joint. And she writes, please, I'm a 78-year-old grandma who legalized pot and now has her own cannabis store. And I'm the last thing standing between the GOP and total control of Virginia. That's worth a retweet. So she was asking to be retweeted, and she was asking for more followers. And I was like, absolutely, Granny. I'm following you. I support you. I just loved it. Loved it. 78 years old. Cool Granny. So here's something from my left ear. My left ear. Those who don't know me, I get messages, I get sentences, advice through my left ear. Either comes or it doesn't come. But we still feel that Georgia is going to drop the indictment first. I said this quite a long time ago, and now other people are Glenn Kirshner has said it. So I'm not co-opting what other people are saying. This is really how my left ear sees it. It is the easiest case to us due to the phone call, which was recorded, and pretty much everybody heard that phone call, which was extortion. You got to find 11,006 votes, whatever that number was. It was really weird. And so Fani Willis got permission to assemble it's called a special grand jury. And that grand jury makes a recommendation. They don't do the indictment, but it's the precursor for the real grand jury that can indict him. And the indictments are going to drop. Now, I'm thinking about 2 months. You're not going to like that. I know any wait is painful right now, but this is my guess. And you know, people that are intuitive are often not good on time frames. So I did some runes. But you know what I did today? I kind of shortened my runes. If I felt like my first or second rune was super strong, I stopped. So I didn't do 3 runes for each question today because it was pretty darn clear. It said yes. That, I mean, it probably will drop soon because we got the rune of strength. Now that is the rune of strength. People like me to hold these up. Upright, which is strength, and strangely, joy. And the reason the rune joy was pulled, you know, my eyes are closed, but the reason it was pulled is because it's joy to see an indictment on Donald Trump or Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham. It won't be or. It'll be and Lindsey Graham. On this, you know, I mean, they're going to come up with their legal term. I'm saying extortion, but, you know, we don't know. What did I write? I wrote, I can't find it now, so I don't want to waste your time. So there is something I want to share with you, even though this is good news, that most likely this is going to drop before the New York. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, New York. My left ear. And it's going to be really disappointing to some, but it isn't to me. I feel like I have it in perspective. And that is, we, the officials who are really doing this, are not, how do I put this? Trump is going to get to bypass some of his legitimate crimes. Some, the statute of limitations is going to run out, or they just won't get to everything because his crimes are so all-encompassing, is a good way to put it. All-encompassing. But I want to say, personally, and I hope I don't offend anybody, it's okay. It's okay. He just needs to get indicted, because all of these things are real serious and they're going to bring him down. He's going to lose property. They're going to seize property, all of this stuff. And he's losing, he's losing his strength. He's losing his power. But just a reminder, we just want him indicted and stopped. So it's still not bad news, but some people will take it as bad news. And it's entertainment purposes only. Now, about Deutsche Bank, much has been said about Deutsche Bank. Here, I lost this thing that always happens to me, which someone tried to help me with, and I didn't pay attention. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, I gotta make this bigger, sorry. Thank you for your patience. I gotta make this into that. Okay, that's bigger, that's easier to read. Letitia James announced today's Tuesday, so maybe late last week, in a 115-page motion that Ivanka Trump submitted misleading financial statements to Deutsche Bank and the US government during her time as primary contact for the Trump org. And Letitia James stated in her filing that she has significant evidence, I love the word evidence, you know that, that Eric, Don Jr., and I call her Evapid, falsified assets for obtaining loans as well as insurance and tax purposes, for insurance and tax purposes. Now, James also has this Trump criminal case in conjunction with the Manhattan District Attorney. It's kind of overlapping a little bit in a way that I don't completely understand. It seems likely that 3 of the Trump spawn, I call them spawn, will be criminally indicted on charges along the lines of loan, insurance, and tax fraud. So I threw one ruin. No, I threw two. About Ivanka. And the question from me was, on your behalf, will Ivanka see the inside of a prison? And my answer to you is very likely, because I first pulled the rune of opening in reverse, okay? So, wait, okay, that's reverse. All right, which is a big message. And the reverse talks about a darkening in some area of her life. Some aspect of her life is dying, and she must give up the old. It's pretty literal, isn't it? And then I pulled the rune of journey, which, you know what? It looks like an R. I didn't pull it out, so I can't show it to you, but it looks like an R. And journey talks about 2 sides of an issue. And what my left ear came up with, guilty, not guilty. 2 sides of an issue, guilty, not guilty. And she cannot rely on her own power or history of power or powerful family. She cannot. It is a rune that's involved in self-healing, self-change. And my left ear thinks this could be an opportunity for her to possibly transform. It does say material advantages must not be a part of this journey. So you don't have material advantages in prison. You don't get hair extensions. In fact, I made a joke about, is her glam squad going to show up at 6 a.m. every day to the jail, get her ready for laundry detail? It's kind of a bad joke. So, continuing with New York and the SDNY, there is a court filing, it's number 365, and it says, while at the Trump Organization, Ivanka Trump, along with Alan Weisselberg, who was the CEO, was the primary point of contact for representatives of Deutsche Bank. It appears that Ivanka is the key Trump family member who dealt with Deutsche Bank the most directly. Ivanka is on a nuclear hot seat if the New York AG views her as having been the most directly responsible for the alleged fraud involving Deutsche Bank. The Trump organization's biggest financial fraud was in relation to Deutsche Bank. Loans. So right now, both Ivanka and Weisselberg could both be indicted for fraudulent asset valuations, and the two of them could be pitted against each other. And, she's known him since she's a child and vice versa. Now, my left ear feels that Donald Jr. is the most expendable of the children in the eyes of his father. The feeling is that his father would throw him under the bus and not, and have a Big Mac, to put it mildly. That privately, he doesn't like this son. He doesn't respect him, and he thinks he's a loser. So watch for Don Jr. to take a big fall. And also, in the last 4 days, he made a short video where he definitely was inebriated, but also maybe coked up, because he's slurring his words and his eyes were half. It was very embarrassing, and people all over Twitter were talking about it. And people were like, can't somebody do an intervention? Well, this isn't a normal family, and nobody really cares that much about each other. And no, I don't think anybody's going to do an intervention for this guy. And I think he has a tragic future beyond jail. I think there's something really tragic with him. Now, in regard to Deutsche Bank, there's just something I want to mention here. Former Justice Anthony Kennedy resigned really quickly. And at that time, there was a photograph of he and Trump having some kind of canoodle in the halls of the Capitol or the White House. And people were like, what are they talking about? Because the president usually doesn't connect with the justices like that. It seemed like an intimate conversation. Well, right after that, he resigned and made way for Kavanaugh. But here's the kicker. His son, Justin Kennedy, right after that, okayed a loan to Trump from Deutsche Bank for over $1 billion. Now, right now, that stuff isn't being paid back, and we could start to read about them seizing his properties. That's a real possibility, because if they can't get the money, that's what they do. They take a building. So look for that. I thought this was kind of newsworthy, and it made me thinking about something. There has been a huge anti-mask protest in Paris. And immediately my left ear went, they're all entitled. We're all entitled. The people that are anti-vax here in the United States, entitled. And I'm like, where did all this entitlement come from? It has to be sociological. Maybe it has to do with the internet. Maybe it has to do with working families who really don't have an opportunity to raise their kids, or they just give the kids whatever they want. I don't know. But here's what I came up with. There's an entitlement pandemic. At the same time, there's this virus. And it is. It's just people having fits. I've seen it. I've seen it myself. I've seen it in the grocery store. I don't share all these stories with you, but my God. Because it would be really negative if I said, well, listen to what happened today. It gets boring. All right, I'm just skipping. There was something on Twitter that made me really sad. This beautiful woman, maybe in her 30s with dark hair. She came, I think it was TikTok, I can't remember. There was no music, but she was just very soft-spoken. She had a mild accent. And she told us that she had just been working with a COVID patient who had been admitted at her hospital. She is a physician. And this man said to her, I want an American doctor. I don't want you. I want someone I can understand. Well, she was very easy to understand. Her accent was really mild. I've had people that are difficult to understand. This woman was not difficult to understand. And you know what? Instead of being like angry, this woman was just sad. She was sad. It made me very angry. And it made me feel that these anti-vaxxers who get sick, and go into a hospital, ICU, or wherever they are, and they mistreat the staff, the doctors, the nurses, they should be shipped out onto the pavement. I mean, that's what they do with people in airplanes. Make room for the person who's having heart failure or appendicitis or broken bone. There's no reason to treat people who act like, it's bad enough that they're anti-vaxxers and they come in with no, but then for them to abuse this community that is exhausted and working so hard. I had to share it with you. Just beautiful lady. So here's about Putin. And I don't pretend to know a lot about foreign politics, okay? However, I did pull runes on, will Putin invade Ukraine? Because my left ear feels he's very desperate. He's acting desperate. Now, Ukraine is a peaceful, nonviolent country. It's for human rights. But Putin feels entitled to Ukraine. There's a whole history there. It would probably be like, if I read up on it, probably like an hour-long show. So I'm not going to go there. Now, here's what's interesting. My left ear thinks he will make a move. He will try. However, the runes, the rune of strength, reversed. Remember that, reversed. This is the rune of strength in the reversed position, which is a weakened position, okay? It's strength reversed, so it's about a missed opportunity, a weakening of his position, minor failures, disappointments, not good for Putin. So let me say this, because it was just a little vague. If he makes this effort, it will not be good for him. He will fail. So that's where we're at. Sometimes I call him Pooty. And coming to the end now, Tucker Carlson, I don't watch Fox News, but I'm aware of what's going on. That he's on the news, news? Fox Entertainment, it's not news. Sorry, I said news. He's on that channel and he's touting Russia now. All the time, every night. Like the next best thing is Russia. He's traveling. Tucker possibly is being blackmailed by Russia via the compromat. And this is the reason for his love, support of Russia, because Russia is really the opposite of what we are supposed to be, what we're fighting for. So Tucker kind of pivoted to being a blatant supporter of that authoritarian country. It's very disturbing because he's influencing people that are not that smart to become pro-Russia, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just like, well, Tucker says it, you know. It's really sad. So I pulled runes, and this was challenging, and I had to really use MLE, my left ear. I picked the harvest, which is, I apologize, you guys. I put the harvest away. But the harvest normally is a very good rune. It's about beneficial outcomes, 1 year. My left ear said, yeah, it's a beneficial outcome for us, not him. And it does say 1 year, which kind of makes sense if he has to be investigated. And then I got the rune of flow. Okay, so that is flow. I did remember that. That's what flow looks like. And flow is about unseen powers. Secrets are at force here. And whatever happens with Tucker and Russia, the feeling and my MLE is it's going to be a transformational year for Tucker. And I'll keep on it. I'll look at this more and more, but I just want to say that. Not a perfect year for him, transformational. I want to assure you of something, although I can't, put money down on it. my left ear still feels that the Democrats will hold both the House and the Senate after the midterms, and maybe add a few seats. I want to say, don't listen to the droning by the pundits who it just comes out of their mouth. Well, you know, if they take the House, if the GOP takes, it's sort of like this automatic thing. They're in a trance, and but they're not looking at, as my friend Tom Joseph said, they're not looking at the issues, the details. There are many things at hand here. The indictments, I mean, it goes on and on. I didn't want to do a like a list of all the issues, but I just want you to say, I still feel like we're not going to lose the House or the Senate, and we're going to gain. And I think next week I'm going to pull runes on Georgia, the Senate race in Georgia, because we really must keep John Ostroff and Raphael Warnock. They're just spectacular. They're not just Democrats. They're spectacular servants. Great senators. And what else? Okay. I kind of came to the end here, and my last reminder is I checked with other people, and we're not really worried about Biden's polls. I don't mean I checked with other YouTube people. I checked with sort of my little group that that maybe don't have a channel, but they're very gifted. And they still have the same feeling I do, that Biden's polls will go up. Much is being made of it. It's almost like the pundits are trying to keep them down. And George Hahn, who's quite the character on Twitter, and he's a New Yorker and very interesting guy, very handsome, fashionable, LGBT, smart. And I think he wrote, I don't think I wrote it down here, but he wrote, Joe Biden is not failing the country. The country is failing Joe Biden. And that is Mr. Hahn. Brilliant. So I'm going to say a couple of personal things to share with you. I always keep those to the end. People like to know what's going on with Petey. Now he's so black. Can you see him? He's in that chair and he's wrapped up in a ball, and you can't really see all the whiteness because he's like wrapped up in a ball. I gave him a little CBD because he was overactive earlier, and I was afraid he was going to interrupt my YouTube, and it has a wonderful effect on him. It's really great for little drops, really great for animals. And I discovered something about Petey now several times, that here we lost it again, that when he gets angry or frustrated, and that's going to sound funny to say about a cat, but he growls. I mean, he makes this deep, it doesn't sound like a cat at all, but he really makes it known that he's very frustrated. And he'll run, and he'll bounce off the sofa and jump kind of like a zoomies, and his tail, which is already like a foxtail, I mean, his tail is enormous, it bushes out. And I just go, Petey, what is going on? He's not scary, but it's very cartoonish, and he's just furious. I just can tell. So it's kind of funny. I talked about this a long time ago. Sometimes it takes me a while to get around to taking care of certain things, but I do it. I found a YouTube mentor who I have a meeting with tomorrow morning, and he's going to step in and start helping me set up my monetization, my Patreon, and improve my channel. And I'll tell you something funny. I looked at these sites, these very fancy sites on the World Wide Web, if like for mentors, tutors, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of overwhelmed me. And I said, you know what? I went to Craigslist and I paid $10, and I wrote my own ad, and it was very brief and very specific. It was like, I have a channel. These are my subscribers. I have a PIN number for my AdSense account, which is not opened yet. I need help with AdSense and Patreon. It was very, very clear. So they had whoever read it had one of my emails, not the email you have, I have a different, and I got quite a few, and people were fascinating. I got a response that said, I'm ready to go to work. When do we start? Like, it had no substance or content at all. It was just, I knew I would delete. And then I had responses from people who gave me all kinds of information that I did not ask for. Well, I do web design and I do video editing. And I just was like, no. I mean, and one person answered my question. I mean, it was like 2 or 3 sentences, and it was like, great. He said, yes, I can help you with YouTube and Patreon. I have experience and I do this and this. And I was like, oh my God, this is fabulous. So I wrote him and I said, thank you for just answering my question. I have 2 more questions for you. Where do you live? And do you have time for a talk on Monday? He wrote back immediately, I live in LA. Fabulous, because that's where I am. And he said, yes. And I said, 10 o'clock Monday, yes. So we got on the phone, and he was my first interview, and I believe he's perfect, just perfect. And we got along great, and he was so nice and intelligent and blah, blah, blah. So we're starting tomorrow. We're gonna screen share and get things rolling. I'm very excited. I feel like that's movement for 2022. And then the last thing is something that's been on my mind. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with human nature and things that I've encountered that trouble me. And I encounter this kind of like a lot. I don't want to make a blanket statement like everywhere all the time, but I encounter it a lot. And that is a lack of curiosity. I feel like we're losing curiosity because I encounter people that never ask questions. They're not curious. I got contacted by someone I hadn't seen in 7 or 8 years, and they were all about, isn't it great I'm back? Isn't it great like I'm contacting you? And not one question about me. Like, are you married? Are you living with anybody? Where are you living now? I mean, nothing. And it was all about, let's talk, and nothing. And then the person said, I'm going to send you a Christmas present. What's your address? So the man sends me a book, and the book, because he had moved from San Diego to Detroit. He doesn't even know I have a YouTube. He'll never see this. But it was all about why people move. So the book was about him. And yes, we are talking about a narcissist. People who are not that curious, I'm not saying they're all narcissists, but we've lost cultivating a wonderful quality. And for people who have social anxiety, now this is, the therapist in me, the coach in me, I'm gonna give you like a little trick that is just not difficult, but it really helps. It makes you look great. Ask people questions. Be a little curious, because everybody becomes more charming and warm when they ask a question and they wait for the answer and they're interested. And it's rare, so it's gonna make you stand out. So think about curiosity, okay? That's my sermon for today. Now we're gonna go with the quotes. And this is Albert Einstein, and I love Albert Einstein. Al. This makes me think of the GOP and their inability to change, their inability to listen to facts, all of this. He said, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. I wouldn't expect anything less from Albert Einstein. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And now the next quote is it's longer, and it's by someone, a woman who's a therapist. She calls herself a feminist therapist, and she is on Twitter, and I copied this. She wrote, challenges come in many forms. No matter what you are facing, it is my wish that something small crosses your path each day that serves as a reminder that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of success, and joy is within your reach. It's kind of like, reminding a little bit of the evidence technique that I do, because something small crosses your path each day. that serves as a reminder. So nice. And then the last one is the famous ancient philosopher poet Rumi, R-U-M-I. And he wrote, this is about taking criticism, by the way. Oh, you who cannot take a good rub, how would you ever become a polished gem? So he speaks of the necessity for criticism, difficulty, and struggle. And without it, we would never become polished. We would never grow. So that's the quotes for today. And I want to say to you, as always, make peace, make memories, and a shout out to Neil Young and Fani Willis. Very excited by that little bit of progress. And I'll see you soon. And onward, people. Don't lose hope, please. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.